Hello crafty friends, welcome back to Jenny Love Journals. Today I want to show you guys, for those of you who collect vintage items and things like that for your journals, whether they be, junk journals, glue books, scrapbooks, whatever they are that you create. So for example, like vintage ledgers, vintage letters, vintage newspaper articles, book pages, diary entries, whatever it is that you have on hand, and they are so old that they are literally extremely brittle or crumbling apart. I'm going to show you what you can do to save them, to be able to utilize them in a beautiful way in your projects. So as you guys can see, they are tags, and I already made several of them here. So I obtained a bunch of these they're not even vintage, they're antique because they're from the late 1800s, and they are ledger pages of different things. Like this one is 1898, this one is 1855, which is really old, 1910, and let's see, this one is 1920. And so I have a bunch more of these, but I just pulled these ones so that I can make a few of these with you, just to kind of do a project with you guys and give you some ideas on what you can do with these. I know, sometimes when you get the ones that, again, they're just really brittle and they're falling apart and they're crumbling apart, you rack your brain, wondering what can I do with these so that they're not, falling apart. So I made some tags out of them. And I made a bunch of them, actually, as you can see here. And it's a good way to preserve them so that you can use them in your journals without worrying about them falling apart. So, excuse me, I'm going to make a few with you guys on camera. So what you're going to need is your documents, your brittle documents here. You can do tags or journaling cards or even pockets, whatever you'd like to do. And in this case, we're going to make some tags. I have 5 of them here. I cut these tags using my Cricut, and I basically used vintage file folder. They're very thick ones. And I just cut the file folder in half and placed it on my mat and sent it through my Cricut and cut out some tags. And these are the tags that we're going to be using. I got some embellishing pieces. I got like these vintage ladies that I cut out of vintage magazines and things like that. And then well, here's some more at the bottom here. And then I have these that I printed from a kit. I love the vintage ladies on these kinds of tags. But you don't have to use just that. You can use whatever you want. It doesn't matter, whatever you prefer. I have some pieces of vintage lace here, some leftover pieces from a previous project that I pulled out, and some pieces of rickrack, and some seam binding, all different stuff here. And we're just going to make a few together. So I also have some Mod Podge. You can glue these on with any type of glue, really. I mean, I would stay away from the wet glue as much as possible, like tacky glue and Elmer's glue and things like that, because these vintage or even antique documents, they're so thin and brittle that the wet glue will definitely wrinkle them, cause bubbles, maybe even tear the paper when you're working with them, and you don't want that. So if you want to use like Fabri-Tac in my opinion is perfect for, I don't have the bottle, but I have some Fabri-Tac in here. And Fabri-Tac is perfect for using on very brittle, very thin paper, because it is alcohol based and it doesn't wrinkle the paper or, cause it to bubble up or anything like that. But in this case today, we're going to Mod Podge these down to the tags so that we basically seal them in. And so I'm just going to show you how. Put a little bit of Mod Podge in there. Now, we'll just start with one here. And then I'll take this. This is a document from March 1st, $18.98. It's just basically a bunch of names and some prices over here. So what I'm going to do is I want to cut this out. Actually, what I'm going to do first is spread some Mod Podge on the tag itself. And just use, you can use a paintbrush or a foam brush. Grab something to put down underneath it here for protection. I should have done that. I'll just go with some book pages here. It was right next to me, so I don't want to get any all over my mat. So basically just spread the Mod Podge all over. And again, you can do this with tags. You can do journaling cards, pockets. You can make anything out of this idea. Hopefully I'm in frame. Okay. Just had to make sure. But again, in this case, we're going to make some tags. And they are perfect to have on hand for when you need tags, especially if you're working on a vintage piece. Okay, now it will bend because the Mod Podge will cause it to, you know, bend like that. But we'll put a book or something heavy on it afterwards when it dries to flatten it back out. I'm just gonna stick that to this. And then we're gonna go ahead and cut around it. And I'm trying not to make long cuts because I want to preserve as much of this document as possible because I can make more out of it. Thank God the back of this one is blank, so I didn't have to choose a side. A lot of the ones that I have, the back, it's front and back, so it's like you gotta choose a side. And then we're going to just spread some more Mod Podge over the top of that and seal that document in there to protect it and preserve it. And again, the fact that it's curling up like that, that's nothing to worry about because, again, once it dries, I'll put something heavy on it and it will flatten it back out. All right, I'm gonna just set this over to the side to dry, and then we'll do another one. Let's see, grab another tag, put some more Mod Podge in here. Let's see, let's grab another document. Like, see, this one, for example, is front and back. So I want to use like this part up here. Since we have a nice big gap in here, I'm going to lose some of it on the back, but it's okay. See, I want to keep a date. I love the writing, the handwriting, the font, I should say. Make sure you get a lot of Mod Podge on there because, and you kind of have to work fast when you're doing this because the Mod Podge tends to dry fast. So that's the only downfall, I think, is that you have to move quite quickly when doing this. Actually, I put that on a little crooked because the tag is a little crooked. There, I want to make sure that the whole tag is covered, sticking to the paper here. I don't mind if I get a little bit on my mat because it does wipe off. It does wipe off easily. Let me make sure I'm in frame when I'm doing this because this is a long piece. Yeah, see the ledger's already lifting up off the tag a little bit because I had to peel it off and put it back on, but it's okay because we're going to put some more over the top of that. So I hope everybody is having a great day today. Hopefully you're having a creative day. Getting some work done, making some beautiful things in your craft room. Another thing that I like about using this, the Mod Podge, is that it goes a long way. It spreads far, far and wide. And I love the glossy sheen that it gives the project when it's finished. We're gonna set this off to the side to dry. The other one is about half dry already. That's literally how fast it dries. All right, we'll do another one here. Got another tag. Let me grab something bigger to work on, to have something under me here. You know what, let me grab a piece of cardstock. Better to work on. There we go. That's something that I did not prepare on before I started this video. So we'll do 3 total. Let me know in the comments if you also have vintage or antique documents that are very fragile, crumbling, falling apart. And if you will be utilizing this idea. Oh, this side is pretty much blank, which is good. That's good for us in this situation. So let me go ahead and cover that up. Cut this out. I don't even know if I'm in frame. I apologize if not. When I'm cutting it down, I feel like I'm not, because the ledger paper is so long that I feel like I have to pull it more toward me. So hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing. More Mod Podge. Yes, I goop it on because I want to make sure that it spreads all the way down. I like to have a lot of it on there. I know some people just put a very thin layer on, but I want to make sure that it's, you know, it's really on there. Because again, I want to make sure that it's sealed in nice, and I love the effect that it gives. We're going to let that dry and check on our first one, which is almost dry. There's a little bubble right there, but it's okay. It's not quite dry yet. It's almost dry. So why don't we just do one more? Because again, they do dry pretty fast. And we can use a piece of like leftover piece of document without cutting into a new one for this last one. We'll go with this side because there's a lot more going on that side. So I said I know we would do 3, but we're gonna do 4. Why not? We still got a little bit of time to wait for those ones to dry. It's hard to grasp it so it doesn't go flying around. My scissors are sticking just a little bit because of the Mod Podge. All right, I think we got just enough Mod Podge left in there to finish this one. So that was perfect. Didn't have to end up dumping any more back into the bottle, which I'm not a fan of doing because I feel like it dries a little bit while it's in the container, and then when you go to put it back in the bottle, it's not as wet as it was when you poured it from the bottle, if you will. And there we go, there's a little bit more. We'll use this on the bottom. Like I said, I like to use a lot. Just to be sure. There we go. And then we'll put this over here to dry with the rest. And the first one is pretty dry. So let me grab a dry baby wipe here. Wipe up any that we may have gotten on the mat. Okay, so this is pretty dry. There's a little bubble right there, but that's okay. I don't mind that. And I'm just kind of gently bending it a little bit just to make it so that it's flat again. I know I said that we would put something heavy on it, but that would take a little bit more time. But look at that. That vintage document is now preserved onto that tag. So we're going to decorate it a little bit. Again, I got some vintage lace over here. We can put some of that on. I got some of these ladies. I got her out of a 1930s Sears catalog, so that's why there's like some price labels. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see what we're doing. I got these ladies. They're a little tall. I might use them on another one. These are digitals. I don't know, I feel kind of bad using digitals on something that is, you know, antique. But that's how we do in the crafting world. We kind of mix and match and things like that. Here's some other things that I got out of the catalog. Let's see. I want to use this one. I'm going to use some Fabri-Tac to glue that on. So tell me, how is the weather where you are? Today is Wednesday, August 15th. And of course, here in Southwest Florida, it is blazing hot. Last couple days we've had some pretty bad storms and a lot of rain, but we kind of needed it. Even though we're in rainy season, we haven't been getting as much rain as we usually do around this time of year. So we've been really needing it. And when I walked my Chihuahua this morning, I'm going to actually put this on this side. I noticed that in the, you know, in the grass on the sides of the road, it was pretty flooded. So it looks like it rained really hard last night when we were sleeping. I know it was storming. I woke up a few times to some really loud thunder. And for those of you who watched the flip through video of my vintage cookbook journals that I recently did, a huge thunderstorm came rolling in as I was filming that video. And there was thunder that made me jump. If you've seen that, let me know, because that was kind of funny. Actually, I might want to put them ladies on there. That looks pretty good. That doesn't look bad at all. I like that. And again, because the paper is so thin, you know, I could have Mod Podged them on, but it's a little too late now because I have the lace. I don't know if I want to Mod Podge the ladies over the lace, because I have them over the lace just a little bit. I can move them over. You know what? I'm gonna do that. Let's Mod Podge some more on this. And make sure that it's nice and flat so there aren't going to be any bubbles. Look at that, there's still some left. Making a mess over here, but oh well. So we can seal them in too. I don't know why I didn't think of this before I started embellishing, but it's okay. We'll let that dry. Super cute. All right, let's see, is the next one dry? It is pretty dry. Came out really nice. Let's see, what do we got? What do we got? I have some pieces of doily left from a project. They're just little pieces. I have my my scrap piece bowl. I brought it out and showed you guys a few times. Whenever I have little scrap pieces left, I put them here in this bowl. That's nice. Can use that. Here's some leftover Dick and Jane fabric from when I made the summertime journals. It's a pretty piece of lace. So I like digging through this bowl to see what I got to use up for things like this. There's some red and white gingham. Pink and white gingham ribbon there. All right, there's a few things that we can use. I liked that doily right there. This is a piece of textured paper here. Just a piece of beige textured paper. That looks nice. I like that. We can do something like that. Let me get my ink. So we can ink this up here. It's a little warm in here, even though I have the air conditioner on. But, you know, when you live in Florida, you can't put the air conditioner on like super, super low and expect it to be freezing in the house, because then it won't be able to keep up. And it'll just be running and running and running. We can't have that, because then our electric bill will cost us our arms, our legs, as well as our firstborn child. We'll put this on this side actually, so I don't want to cover up those prices over there. They're so nicely written. But I can't wait until summer is over. Get back to the cooler weather. I know I've said this before when making a video, and a lot of people don't realize this. People who don't live in Florida anyway, or people who have never been to Florida in the winter, that it gets cold down here in the winter. And there's people who think that it's hot down here all year round. And it's not. So I can't wait for the colder months. It's sticking to my fingers, so it keeps wanting to come up. And then this, I got glue all over my hands. It's so funny. I'll put this over here. Like my fingers are sticking to everything. Pretty. Should we put anything else on here? You put that lace across the top there for like a pull. Instead of putting an eyelet in there, we'll put some lace. The AC just kicked on. I'll put this on there. I don't know if you guys can ever hear it when my air conditioner kicks on, but it's not very loud. I have a pretty quiet central air conditioner, thank God, because when I'm filming, you know, I think that's the last thing you guys want to hear. Oh my goodness, my fingers. But anyways, there's that. How cute. Let me zoom out just a little bit. How cute is that? And then this one that we just did, still kind of drying. But I don't really want to put an eyelet in here and put seam binding or anything, because then that means I'm going to have to punch into that lady's face, and I really... we don't want to do that. So I might just leave this like it is with no, you know, nothing up at the top here, and just put it into a more shallow pocket so that we can pull it out easier. But there's those two. Super cute. And like I said, these two are still drying. Yeah, it's still wet up there. But like I said, guys, you know, vintage documents, ledgers, letters, book pages, you know, whatever it is that you have, vintage bills, receipts, you know, things like that. If you have some and they're just so thin and brittle and just falling apart, and you don't know what to do with them, this is a good idea on something that you can do. And like I said, you can use any kind of glue to just glue them over the top, but my advice would be the Mod Podge, so that you can seal it into whatever you're putting it on, whether it be a tag, a journal card, a pocket, or even a page. You can make full pages with this. Like you can take like a full page like this and just Mod Podge this over the top of a regular piece of you know, copy paper or something like that, whatever it is you use to print like your digitals and stuff. And you can Mod Podge this whole thing over it and seal it in and secure it so that it's not ripping and tearing and crumbling, and turn it into a journal page to, you know, put into your signature, and you can fold it in half and it won't crack or break. You know, there's a lot of different ways that you can preserve these vintage or antique papers and turn them into something beautiful so that you can utilize them in your journals. But anyways, so thank you so much for doing this project with me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And as always, if you did, make sure that you give it a great big thumbs up. Share it out to any family and friends who you think would enjoy it. And if you guys decide to do this, let me know in the comments and let me know how it turned out. But anyways, thank you guys so much again, and I hope you are having a wonderful day. Take care, guys.